Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo visits Lagos following days of gridlock along the Apapa-Oshodi Expressway by tankers and other articulated vehicles. Police summons Kogi Senator Dino Melaye over claims of alleged assassination attempt by police officers in Kogi State. Flash floods continue to threaten many states in Nigeria as the Nigerian Meteorological Agency predicts more rain for the rest of the year. We'll examine how to tackle the danger ahead. And US President Donald Trump invites Russian President Vladimir Putin to Washington for a summit in October.
On business news tonight, Central Bank commences sale of the yuan following a $2.5 billion swap deal signed with the People's Bank of China in April.
And on sports news tonight, the Flying Eagles of Nigeria are one win away from a record 16th appearance at the Under-20 AFCON finals when they face Mauritania tomorrow at the Agege Stadium in Lagos.
And from Abuja, President Muhammadu Buhari demands increased voter education ahead of the 2019 general elections.
We begin tonight with a promise by the federal government to find a solution to the gridlock and other infrastructure challenges in Apapa and other adjoining areas linking the nation's ports here in Lagos. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, made the promise today during a visit to the Apapa-Oshodi Expressway, where tankers and other articulated trucks have occupied the entire highway for more than 3 days. The Vice President also had difficulty getting to the area by road. Our correspondent, Olu Phillips, reports.
In what appears like a first response to Channels TV's report on the gridlock caused by trucks heading to the nation's premier port, the number 2 citizen, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, comes to Apapa to see things for himself. A mammoth crowd, most of whom were those trapped in the traffic, besieged the august visitor in company of the State Commissioner of Police, the Minister of Transport, Rotimi Amechi, and others who joined him just to catch a glimpse, making it practically impossible to have official statements. After the brief walk opposite the Tinkan Port Gate, owing to the surging crowd, Professor Osinbajo made it back to his chopper, where many others had laid siege, waiting to see the Vice President. If this visit is anything to go by, perhaps the process to rescue Apapa may just be on the way. Whatever processes that will be adopted to fix Apapa, certain steps are sacrosanct. The road must, as a matter of urgency, be awarded for repairs. Also, the Ministry of Transport should also consider the use of other ports across the country to help decongest Lagos. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
And from problems on the roads, many states across the country are bearing the brunt of severe rainfall and flooding that recently led to the loss of lives and property, particularly in Ogun, Katsina and Bauchi states. The bad weather should come as no surprise, as the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, had predicted flooding in the country for 2018. But the scale of the damage it's caused is quite disturbing. In this report, our correspondent Olumide Macaulay looks at the recent flood disaster in Ogun, Bauchi and Katsina states.
Citizens in Abeokuta, Ogun State, adapt quickly to salvage what they can after a deluge that inundated the north and south of the state capital.
The rain started around 4 and it took like 3 hours before it stopped. But this damage was really surprised when it came up through the flood. So we couldn't get anything. I cannot even dictate for government, but the only thing I can say is they can assist financially.
The destruction is far-reaching, with 4 deaths and 2 people missing, 650 houses affected, prompting a visit by the state governor.
We'll continue to make sure that will see necessary relief that we should give to our people. But a lot of things that we have to fix now, and we will probably not be in a position to quickly do that on our own as a state. So what we will do is to escalate it to federal government and see whatever help that they can render to us.
The National Emergency Management Agency claimed a door-to-door awareness campaign on the Nigerian Meteorological Agency's prediction of flooding across the states was ignored. And that does little to absorb the shock of the image of this great tree in Bauchi State, seemingly uprooted by an invisible hand. That's a minimal casualty in a state that also suffered a rainstorm that left people hiding from the force of nature. Houses are damaged, masts bent in two, destruction left in its wake.
I will now seek for an appointment with Mr. President and brief him adequately about what has happened to Bauchi State and solicit for his support, because issues like this cannot have been foreseen. They're therefore not in the budget of the state. But I know there's a special fund at the federal level that will be used to assist states like mine that are in distress as a result of this storm.
Mr. President did not only have to receive that report, but also one from his home state of Katsina, where unruly weather struck again. Carcasses of livestock, the least of the worries of the communities here, as 45 people lost their lives.
Part of the problem is that some people built up in an area that is prone to flooding. And I think in redirecting and reconstructing the drainage, we must make sure that those living in lowland area that are prone to this kind of flooding are relocated to a much safer ground.
The rainy season is far from over, and the government has its responsibility to do what it can in the face of factors beyond its control. By doing what it can control, enforcing disaster management measures to protect its citizens. Olumide Macaulay, Channels Television News.
To discuss this worrying development, I'm now being joined on the News at 10 by an environmentalist and the technical director of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, Dr. Joseph Onoja. Thanks a lot for joining us on the News at 10.
My pleasure, always.
Well, it's just July and we're experiencing this sort of flooding, across all the states. Why is it this difficult for us to control the effects of adverse weather?
Well, it's unfortunate that the incident continues to take us, shall I say, unawares every year. But this happens every year, and we seem not to be prepared about it. Well, there are, I'll call it complicity, both on the side of the government and on the side of individuals and citizens of the country. For instance, when the program was, the news bulletin was going on, the reporter, if you look at the last image, houses were being built very close to the canal. You could imagine when a flash flood happens, and it happens most times at night. The other lady was talking about it started around 4 a.m., and that's the time that people are deep asleep. By the time it comes, it will take them unawares, and definitely it will happen that there will be casualties. So we continue, and people will build, even if they are not given the authority to build in such places, they will go ahead and build anyway. And the government agencies that are supposed to regulate such will not regulate. So when this thing happens, it takes us unaware. We say, oh, it's act of God. No, it's act of negligence. But
sometimes when you say it takes us unawares, we have all the early warning systems. In fact, when these sort of things happen, they name, oh, it should happen in that state. That is one of the states that they warned that rain will come. But what are people to do when you warn them that the rains are coming? There's no plan for where they're going to relocate to, or their welfare, or anything. So are people supposed to just up and go where? What is the plan for when the government say the rain in this area could sack the whole community? What further plan is made for them?
You see, when I talked about being unawares, I had it in inverted commas. And that's exactly what happens, because we are really aware, because there are warnings on these things that will happen. But somehow we just have this laid-back attitude, feeling that, oh no, well, it won't happen to us. But exactly, it will certainly happen to us, especially the areas that are prone to this flood are already known. because lowland areas they're certainly susceptible to this flood. So sometimes when government even make pronouncements and sends out warning that this is what will happen, there are no evacuation protocol. There are no evacuation measures put in place for that to happen. And humans, the citizens on their own also are complicit in all of this, because number one, we should be preventing these things because it's easier and cheaper to prevent than to cure. Because why go and build your houses where you know that there are lowlands? Why not avoid those places? You know, and when the floods come, they will definitely find those lowland areas and they'll be affected. Okay, quickly now, let's turn our spotlight on Lagos. Yeah. Environmentalists like yourself are worried about the coastal areas. They've talked about the beach. Yeah. I've heard someone talking about the beachhead being where it is. How worried are you about what's going on around the beaches? If you go to the beach, especially after Okunalfa and towards Lafiaji, you will be worried. Because we are having, I was in the community yesterday, and we were looking at a well that was obviously in the middle of the community, but now it's right inside the ocean. So we're talking about between April and July, on the 6th of July this year, from April to the 6th of July, we've lost almost 35 meters. Wow. Yes. And the scary part of it is that it's been eroding the higher part of the beachhead. What happens when it goes to the lower part? Then we'll have salt water running inland freely, and it will contaminate the groundwater. So which agency should take the lead in terms of a concrete step to stop this? Because you continue to hear the Ministry of Water Resources on one part, NIMET is on one hand, NEMA comes in when the disaster happens. If you were to advise the government tonight, or anybody who was watching, what should be the first thing we should do in Lagos? At least that's where we all live right now. Yeah, there must be a coordinated approach, because the problem is not just is hydra-headed. There must be a coordinated approach from all the agencies put together. So if there are no coordinated approaches, that's why one agency will be doing something that counteracts the effect of the other agency. So they need to come together. For Lagos, we are calling on the federal government to assist Lagos, because Lagos have done some groins, which is just a stopgap, which is not a holistic approach, which is not a holistic solution. So there's a need for us to look at a study to really show what would be the lasting solution to coastal erosion. And when you talk about the flooding, that's why we sometimes create awareness for people too, because what I do, what you do as citizens also affect what we do. For instance, our drainage has been clogged because of improper disposal, waste disposal. Our people build on canals, and they block the road, and they block the waterway, and water will always find its level. And that's why when it comes, the flooding happens. All right, thank you so very much, the Nigerian Conservation Foundation Technical Director, Dr. Joseph Onoja, for joining us on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you. My pleasure. The Kogi State Police Command has denied media reports that police officers from the command launched an attack on the convoy of the senator representing Kogi West, Dino Melaye. The statement is a reaction to an allegation by the lawmaker who accused the police of shooting at his convoy on his way to inaugurate a constituency project in Kogi State. But the police commissioner in Kogi State, Mr. Ali Janga, describes the report as wrong and misleading.
Our operatives were there on patrol, routine patrol, and conducting stop and search. Just of a sudden, they saw a convoy driving recklessly coming towards them. So they stopped and flagged them off. When they flagged them, the vehicle in the front, who are with the civil defense, to stop when they discovered that they are police officers. They stopped, but unfortunately, the remaining vehicles that were in the convoy decided to move very fast. The last vehicle, that is a Hilux van with unidentified civilians inside, decided to open fire to my policemen. So you don't expect the police to fold their arms. Eventually, they reply, they open fire too. Dino has been going around telling people that he was attacked by unidentified armed men. No, they were not unidentified men. They were real police officers. They were there on assignment. Nobody attacked Dino. Rather, his convoy attacked my policemen. They repelled back. We are inviting Dino to come and explain why he's shooting. Why must he shoot my policemen? Going after him. If we cannot see him, we will declare him wanted for watch listing.
In part 2, after the break, Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom sits on the fence as he claims he remains in the ruling All Progressives Congress, alleging he was given a red card by the leadership of the party in the state. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.